Same thing. Is my phone over here?
Am I on there?
That's the other these people that are getting sick, even if they're not dying, they're sick for weeks.
Should be on there. I can't see. So there. Alright. Have we got you muted or not? It should be on there. I can hear that.
It's too bad.
I'll text Allison now. Thanks. I started to set a reminder on my phone and I got distracted.
Yeah, I didn't want to forget it, you know?
Well, better than 40.
Whole company?
Hello.
Morning, Carolyn.
Good morning.
There?
Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
That's because no one's speaking.
Can you hear us now? I guess not.
We had our mics off. Can you hear us now, Dr. Beebe?
They hear now, yeah?
Dr. Marble, excuse me.
Right there?
No. Say hello. Hello?
Hello?
We can hear you.
They answered.
Okay,
But they're not coming across very good.
fine.
Is your mic on? I don't know. I can call him. Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
You guys sound like you're, like in a can.
Huh. All right. What we've been doing with these meetings, when we're sitting as far apart as we are, is taking masks off.
Okay.
And I'll say that.
Try again.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually,
Mayor, try speaking in.
okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to leave mine on.
Okay, that's fine. Can you hear us now, Dr. Marble?
You're not very loud.
We're not very loud. Okay, we're going to try to adjust the volume.
Try that.
Is that any better?
Yeah, it's a little better, but it's not really clear.
All right. I'm wondering if
All
somebody.
right, our technical gurus are working on it.
No, that's better, Mayor.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Can you hear them, Jim?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Got a couple minutes yet.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Susan.
Yeah,
Okay. It wasn't working there for a while.
Okay. Okay, it looks like that clock is a little slow. It is now 9:30.
30, yep.
Okay, so it is 9:30 on August the 31st, and we're here for a Board of Health meeting. Melody, how many people do we have on besides the folks that are on screen? We have Dr. Marvel and Susan Miller.
There's like 6 participants total.
Okay, can you look and see who they are?
Yeah, would you pull up the sidebar with the attendees?
Just because,
Okay, so we have
Nick Ross
Nick-
and Roman.
Roman Battaglia.
Okay,
Okay, so we don't have,
we don't have a quorum. We do have a
we
quorum.
do have a quorum.
Yeah, we're good.
No, I was just looking to see if Dr. Tam or Bob Fulton were on.
Okay. Bob said he was going to join, but he may be have gotten sidetracked.
I'm not sure about Dr. Tam. I think he may be out of town this week.
Okay.
All right, well, anyway, obviously Dr. Cowan is here, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. The way we've been running city meetings is we're going to wear a mask if you're not vaccinated. If we're vaccinated and we're appropriately distanced apart, we can remove them. I'm going to remove mine. I think Dr. Cowan's going to remain with his on, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Cowan. Thank you.
Good morning. First order of business, we have 2 sets of minutes from the prior meeting to approve. There's one from June 9th, and one from August 3rd. We can get a motion to approve those?
So moved.
To move, is there a
And I'll
second?
second it.
A move and a second, is there any discussion? In favor, perfect. All right, so we have those, both those have been approved. So the update on coronavirus is complicated. It is certainly much more virulent now than it was when we met in the beginning of August. When you look at our numbers now, it really kind of doesn't matter which metric you look at. Our numbers now are very similar to what they were in the end of January, sometime in February, when you look at positivity rates or if you look at hospitalizations. So we're kind of back to where we were before most people were vaccinated. That's the bad news. The good news is that most of the people that are being hospitalized now are unvaccinated. The vaccinated people, if they do get infection, and we are seeing that, tend to be doing very well with it, which is good. But it's tough now. The overlay in healthcare is that the rest of the world has continued on. So during the height of the pandemic, we didn't see, for whatever reason, we didn't see strokes, we didn't see heart attacks, we didn't see other pneumonias, we didn't see other viral infections. For whatever reason, we saw just COVID, that was it. And it was easier to manage that because there wasn't a ton of other healthcare needs. Now, since the world is back to normal, we're seeing strokes like we did, heart attacks like we did, trauma like we did, excuse me. And now we're trying to overlay that onto a significant surge of COVID. And that's putting a significant stress on the healthcare system, not just here in Lewis, but actually throughout the state and throughout the region. When you look at hospital capacity rates, they are at capacity or over capacity. And that's, as I said, it's true everywhere. We really feel it when we try and transfer patients between hospitals. Certain hospitals offer certain procedures that other hospitals don't, so we wind up transferring patients around relatively frequently, and that becomes difficult now with receiving hospitals not having bed capacity. They have the ability to provide procedures, but not the beds for it. So it's becoming a very challenging, very dynamic situation over the last few weeks. My hope is that we don't end up like they are in the southeastern United States. When you talk to people that are doing acute care medicine in the southeast, it is a real disaster there, without a doubt. But our numbers, fortunately, our vaccination numbers are higher than they were there. So our vaccination rates now, if you look at in Sussex County for everybody from age 0 through however old you can be. That total vaccination rate is 55%. That's 2 shots. And really 2 shots is the number to look at. You'll see people that will quote a number of 1 shot. The reality is that 1 shot with either one of the, either Moderna or Pfizer still only gives you maybe a 60% protection against coronavirus, so not nearly enough, not compared to in the 90s. So we really need to be looking at the 2-shot number. That number is that 55% number is a little misleading because, again, citizens under the age of 12 are not eligible. So when you look at that number from 12 and above, it's actually 63% of the eligible people in the county are fully vaccinated, which is certainly, it's a better number than what we see, in the southeast part of the country. Their numbers were closer to between 40 and 50%, which is probably why their surge is so much greater than it is here. But still a lower number than what we need from a public health standpoint, without question. The good news is when vaccines first came out, the people that were concerned about vaccines talked about it in respect to just themselves. I have concerns about it, and like I don't want to get it. And now when you talk to people that are getting vaccinated, they now understand that it's more than just about themselves. This is really a matter of the community, which is great to see, great to hear, because it's no longer about individual people. It's about everybody else that you potentially come in contact with that otherwise are significantly at risk. Because remember, people that are vaccinated that still have significant underlying medical diseases, they're very much at risk to get sick even though they're vaccinated. So the fewer people around them that are potentially shedding virus, obviously the better. And obviously the biggest worry that we all have ultimately is that the virus mutates in a way into a serotype that is the vaccines aren't effective against or much less effective against. And then we end up back where we were in March of 2020. So I hope that won't happen. And there's no suggestion that that's happening right now, but that's what all of the virologists and the epidemiologists are worrying about pretty much everywhere. So that's the news. I had better news when we met if you look at my notes from the June meeting, things were pretty good. But, this is coming in waves.
So, Paul, we're beginning to hear about the third vaccination or the booster vaccination, and I know I have a couple of employees who's actually been able to get it here already. So it's beginning to be, although it hasn't been officially endorsed or released by the CDC, it's beginning to appear in the public. Any news about that going on? Or?
Yeah, so the government suggests they're going to suggest a third booster at the end of September for the general public. Right now, it's currently recommended for people that are otherwise immunocompromised. So I think it's coming. And I know that Pfizer in particular is studying the effects of the third vaccine. They have trials where they've done that. They also have trials apparently where they're looking at a different type of vaccine, I'm told. That's, I guess, unofficially. Different type of vaccine meaning one that would be much in the way each flu shot is different. So I think it's coming. The data on it is still sort of being developed, so we'll kind of wait and see. It seems to make sense, though, based on what we know about other immunizations, that eventually the amount of antibodies in your body drops, and a booster is helpful.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is, if the first two, if you're fully vaccinated, do diminish to like 60 to 70% effective as opposed to what higher rates they were before.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, the difficult thing about evaluating the medical literature about this right now is that the studies that are being done are relatively small in scale. They have to be small in scale. So it's hard to sort of interpret what each individual study means, and then there tends to be a study the next week that suggests something a little bit different. So it's very much a dynamic situation. I spend time every week looking to just kind of see what's new and kind of what people are doing. So,
Dr. Cowan, one of the things I think that either you or Dr. Tam said in August when we were starting to see hospitalizations go up again was at that point hospitalizations were going up, but we weren't seeing the number of people on ventilators that we had seen before. Has that trend worsened as well?
So there are a few more people on ventilators now than there were before. The reason why we don't see people on ventilators as much is that we have a bunch of other techniques, if you will, to keep people off ventilators. We know that when people get on ventilators, it's very difficult for them to get off. So we kind of do everything in the world now to keep them off a ventilator. So I think the more important number is to look at the total hospitalizations. And again, our total hospitalizations now are similar to what they were in February of this year. So essentially in a relatively unvaccinated period of time.
There's some confusion with people about the flu vaccine that's coming and a booster or a vaccination. They're two different things, and they need to be separately administered, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And I don't know, I haven't talked to our ID people about when we are going to roll out our flu vaccine. Last year from an organizational standpoint, we vaccinated everybody in 48 hours. It was a big push. I assume we'll do something similar this year. And quite frankly, if the boosters are available, we'll likely do the same thing too.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then, did Bob Fulton join us? I don't see him on screen, but did he by any chance log in?
I'm wondering if he didn't get the alert of the meeting,
Maybe not.
because usually he's
I know there's been a
texted me to get.
lot of discussion about masking or not masking at the school system. I think we're all aware of what happened at the board meeting last week.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah. Okay.
So one question that I have for the board is, as it relates to our own workforce, and I know I've shared some of this with you, Dr. Cowan, we have, I would say, a majority of our workforce is vaccinated, but we have 2 departments where we still have significant numbers of staff unvaccinated. Right now, we have what I would call a small outbreak in our maintenance department. We've got 4 people out with COVID. And one of the things we have considered is combination of incentivization for our workforce to get the vaccine, followed by, and with that, we would hold a vaccine event. I have talked to Kim Blanche, and she's willing to work with us on that. And if people then continue to choose not to get vaccinated, with the incentive and opportunity to do it on work time, that we would go to requiring either vaccination or weekly or twice a week testing. We did find out from Aspira that they've now have, it's not out yet with them, right? This week was the launch. This week they've launched the rapid PCR test. So that's a benefit because, so I would like to get a recommendation from the Board of Health as if that's a positive way to move for our workforce. Because again, we are here to serve the public, and we've got a lot of aging members of the public, and
Also, a lot of the departments we're talking about interact with the public regularly.
exactly.
Not only, most of them, well, one department particularly interacts with just the public, but the other one interacts with a lot of tourists potentially because they're, of the nature of their work. So I think, we want to make sure they're protected. And I think we also, in like what you were saying, the people who are vaccinated and come down with us with COVID aren't getting as ill. So we have one of the people that is positive has been vaccinated, and we're seeing, I think this individual is asymptomatic, which is good.
Jim or Susan, do you want to comment on that?
You don't want me to comment on it.
We do.
I think it's a shame that people are so self-centered that they don't want to commit and have these vaccinations. Yes, some people are getting sick from the vaccination, but they're not dying from the vaccination. It annoys me that people are being given incentives to do what the rest of us have done because we thought it was right. And that's just how I feel.
Well, if we were to do an incentive, it would be for anybody who has been vaccinated even, I mean, we wouldn't just do the people who were holdouts. So
The incentive would apply to all employees who've been vaccinated.
Yeah, and I think you do, if you do it for your employees, I think you should do it to the ones that, for the ones that did vaccinate before.
Okay.
That's better. But I just think, I mean, they're getting the vaccination free. You know, I just can't understand why people can't see the benefit of it.
Dr. Marvel, you want to comment?
Well, I think some of the people that don't want vaccinated are concerned about the rapidity at which the vaccine was developed and its safety. But I think, you know, if you think about it, all the other shots that they get, they're the same. And these shots have as great not only efficiency but safety as any other vaccines. Now, you know, if you're in the service, when I was ready to go to Vietnam, I had like 14 shots in one day, and I didn't get sick, and I came back.
I would agree with you, Dr. Marvel. I had the same experience.
I can't understand these intelligent people that are refusing to get vaccinated. I just don't understand it.
Okay.
Question or comment?
Carolyn, come up to the mic. You're on the other side of the table.
Yeah, I know, I am. Carolyn Jones, 111 Bradley Lane in Lewis.
pull the mic down so,
Pull the mic down.
sorry.
All right, my question is that we talk about giving an incentive to workers, but how about looking at it from a different perspective? We in the county or city, we pay for health insurance, right? Mm-hmm. So is there some way we can look at it from the perspective of, well, you know, if they become ill, it's a tax on our health plans. So we need to look at it from the perspective, if you don't do it and you do get sick, or we take away your health, we have to think of something more on that line as opposed to the positive side of, let me give you an incentive to take, to take a shot. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I think we've already done some of that in that initially when people came down with, if they came down with COVID, they got a 10-day, 2-week break without any charge against their leave. We have eliminated that now.
Okay, that's good.
Okay,
That's good.
so if they get sick now, they're being charged their medical leave.
Perfect. It should work in that direction as
Okay,
opposed to...
so we're already doing that, Carolyn.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Is that correct, Anne Marie?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I guess you're aware of Delta Airlines, where they're actually charging a premium to their employees that aren't vaccinated. They're charging a $200 premium, healthcare premium each month.
Each month.
That's the direction we should go. I mean, I'm a sports person, so I'm looking at football, and you're charging these guys $14,500 if they don't get shots. So
Right.
obviously we get to go in that direction.
Right.
But I certainly don't want to go in the direction of positive, other than give you something to take the shot. It doesn't work for me.
We have a number of employees who are grandfathered in the group that gets 100% healthcare premium paid by the city. I mean, we could look at how, I mean, that would be something that council would need to consider.
And we can consider that. I think, yeah, there are a number, I mean, like, if you're in New York and you go to a museum, they're not going to let you in unless you're vaccinated now. So, well, you prove it with you, actually in New York they've got an app now, but there's also, you can carry your CDC card with you. So there are all kinds of things that are being done to try and encourage people to get vaccinated, but I think what you're saying is a good point, Carolyn. Thank you.
If we do something that requires vaccination or has a penalty, we do have obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act if there's a legitimate health-related reason
We do, right.
So I think to respect the purview of just this committee, we can make a recommendation that all of your employees should either be vaccinated or be tested weekly. The decision about whether to incentivize them, all that kind of stuff, that's probably outside of the purview of us. Although I'm happy to weigh in on it, but just from a
Okay.
kind of staying in my own lane standpoint.
Right.
So, and if I remember Robert's Rules of Order, which I don't think I can make a motion.
You cannot.
Right. So can somebody else from our committee make a recommendation to the city that we encourage either vaccination or weekly testing for the employees?
Susan, do you want to make that motion?
Susan or Dr. Marlowe, you want to make that motion?
Can they hear you?
Can you hear us, Susan?
No, I couldn't understand what he said that time.
Okay, you want to repeat it, Paul?
Yeah, so I can't make the motion, but I was wondering if you'd be willing to make a motion that from this committee that the city either require vaccination or weekly testing for their employees.
Can you take your mask down and repeat that?
Sure. The question is, if we can make a recommendation from this committee, and I can't make the recommendation myself, that we ask the city to have their employees either vaccinated or have weekly testing.
I will make a motion that they will have weekly testing.
Or be vaccinated?
Who's going to pay for that weekly testing?
Well, it depends. If they go to a place that requires a copay, they would have to pay that copay. But I think at this point, most testing is quote-unquote free.
It's still no charge.
I like to second that motion.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other additional discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
But
All right,
Okay, so we have that recommendation.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Okay. I've had some question from the community about whether or not we should go back to requiring masks in certain areas downtown. Well, we've lifted that requirement and made it really dependent upon the individual. And I see a real mixed message in terms of what people are doing. Some shopkeepers are still wearing masks, some are not. Some patrons are wearing masks and some aren't. What's the hospital policy on visitors now?
So everybody is masked, but you've been masked since the beginning of the pandemic. We haven't really,
But are you allowing visitors in?
we're allowing visitors in right now. I think there's one visitor per person. That may change because as our hospitalizations go up, but currently that's what we're doing. So I think with regards to when you look at what a lot of the national companies are doing, they're requiring their employees to be masked, but not necessarily requiring their customers to be masked. And it sort of makes sense in the standpoint that if you think about someone who is dealing with the public, they are going to come in contact with a lot of people over the course of a shift. Many of those people may not respect 6 feet, whereas someone who is, a customer will not interact with nearly as many people. So it sort of makes sense. It's sort of a blend, I think. And remember that if you're outside, your risk of catching it from somebody else is really minimal at best. So I kind of think from that standpoint, what I see now is pretty reasonable. I do think I see a lot more customers masked now, and I wonder if those are vaccinated or unvaccinated people. They're really cautious vaccinated people, or if they're truly unvaccinated.
Yeah, I notice when I go to the larger stores, like a grocery store or perhaps to Walmart or something like that, I see a lot more patrons being masked. And I think Walmart's requiring masks now.
Correct.
And so But I think in our smaller shops downtown, I see a real mixed bag of people either masked or not masked.
Yeah. You know, with employment being such a struggle now for these places, they almost can't afford to lose many employees for a period of time if they get exposed.
Right, yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, in fact, we had a business downtown that had an employee test positive, and they closed for about a week. Peak season, that's tough.
Yeah.
To lose your volume of your business, especially after last year.
Yeah. Hopefully that person could come back to work in a week, because a lot of these people that we're seeing now that are getting sick are sick for a prolonged period of time. It's not just a few days, it's a multi-week process.
All right, anything else? Do we have any hands up? I know Nick Roth was on, I don't know if he has any questions.
Not me.
Okay. Come back up, Carolyn.
You just mentioned that you see that they're getting sicker longer. Are these people who have been vaxxed?
These are unvaccinated people.
Okay.
So the vaccinated people that have symptoms tend to have very mild symptoms. Generally speaking, are doing very well with it.
So they don't get very sick, what you're saying?
So they do not. The vaccinated people in generality do not. The unvaccinated people are sick, and they're sick for a while. And I think that's lost on people if they're younger and they think, well, you know what, if I get sick, it won't be so bad. It'll be just like getting a cold or the flu. Well, the reality is that some of these people, when they're hospitalized, find themselves in the hospital for a week or 10 days, and then they're not really able to return to work after that. They have oxygen requirements, they're just fatigued, they're not able to return to what they do. So it becomes not a couple-day impact in their life, but more like a month. So that's
What's
the
the
concern.
time frame for one that's vaxxed, if you're vaxxed and you get ill?
Well,
Is it a shorter period of being ill?
it is, and more importantly, the symptoms are shorter. In generality, the people that are vaccinated have very mild symptoms. Think of it as a mild cold.
Oh, okay.
But the people that are unvaccinated are getting much sicker.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But again, that's in generality. We still see some people that are vaccinated, they're getting very sick, but they tend to be people that have significant underlying medical issues, in particular pulmonary issues.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay?
If there's nothing else to bring forward, shall we set another meeting?
Yes.
It looks to me as though if we're going to stay with a 3-week schedule, which I think is kind of reasonable given the pickup rate that's going on here, does that work for you? So the 21st won't work because that's your finance committee meeting.
Right.
So
And actually-
does the 22nd work?
It doesn't, actually, let me see. I am booked later that week.
We do the following week.
And you want to do the 28th?
The 28th works.
Okay, so why don't we do the 28th? Is 8 and 9:30 or 9 o'clock good for you?
9 o'clock's great.
Okay, do it 9 o'clock then.
I've got a 9 o'clock doctor appointment, or an 8 o'clock doctor appointment, but as long as one of our other staff people can do the thing, I can listen to it from the road.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
See you.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Recording stopped.
Thanks, Kelly. Back to California.
Yes.
Is daughter still out? She's the swimmer.
So I thought she graduated from high school.
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
Right. So he's got this son, Cade, who's a...
Oh, I thought he was a kid.
Right.
He's a football player or wrestler or something?
Football player.
Okay.
And then David went back out, he's to visit his mom.
Oh, okay.
So
Is she well?
I
I know his